tutorial for the seconds to timestamp converter. We're supposed to create a program that can convert a number of seconds into a timestamp string. So here's an example of a timestamp string. We've got 00 for the hours, 00 for the minutes, 45 for the seconds, and of course that could be different numbers. And that would come from 45 seconds, right? So 45 seconds, of course, has 0 hours in it and 0 minutes. It's just 45 seconds. But the higher you go, obviously you're going to see some more interesting things. So 41,901 seconds is 11 hours and 38 minutes and 21 seconds, apparently. Anyway, so you can use these to kind of test if your code works as soon as we've written the code. Okay, so we need to ask the user for a number of seconds. Oh, and we're not supposed to use any built-in Python things. Okay, so we're going to do this all ourselves. And the program should convert the number into a string following the pattern we just looked at. Process should loop so the user can do it as many times as they want. And there's a hint saying the percent sign, the mod operator, can be useful here because it gives you the remainder after division. Okay, so let me just start by printing, telling them what to type. So we can say enter a number of seconds, and then we can store that as a variable. So why don't we just call that total seconds. And we want to make sure that it's treated as an integer or as a whole number, right? We don't want it to be treated as text. By default, whenever the user enters something, it's treated as text, right? So just the input command by itself would be a text value, even if I'm typing numbers like that. But if I have the word int in front, now it's going to be treated as a number, and we can start doing some math calculations or operations with it. All right, some things that are going to be helpful for us, like I said before, the mod operator, that's the percent sign, right? So if I were to say total seconds divided by 60, that's how many minutes there are, right? But if I said total seconds mod 60, that would tell me how many seconds there were that didn't fit in one of the minute units, if that makes sense. Anyway, so that's going to be useful to us in a second. How about first, let's create a variable for how many seconds are in 1 hour, because we want to know how many total hours there are. And if we can divide by how many seconds there are in 1 hour, then it'll tell us the number of hours, right? So let's say seconds in hour. And we can make the computer do the math for us here if we just know there are 60 seconds in 1 minute, and then there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So that will store the value 3600 in seconds in 1 hour. Anyway, we can just use that variable now, or as a constant, and we can tell how many hours there are. So let's just say hours equals total seconds divided by seconds in hour. Yeah. And of course, we want it to be treated as a whole number, so once again, we can use the int function surrounding that operation. Let's just test if this works correctly before we move on. So we can say print hours, and it says enter a number of seconds. If I say 45 seconds, obviously that's going to be 0 hours, so it says 0. But if I say 3,605 seconds, that should be slightly over 1 hour, right? So it says 1 hour. Perfect. And then we can also use that percent sign I talked about earlier to tell how many seconds remain that weren't already accounted for in the hours number we created. So I'm going to get rid of the print statement. Let's create a variable called remaining seconds now. Remaining seconds. And we will set that to be whatever our total seconds was, mod by seconds in 1 hour, or seconds in hour. Okay? And we still have to strip out how many minutes there are from that remaining seconds, right? In this case, the remaining seconds, it would have just been 5 seconds, so there would have been 0 minutes. But let's say it was 3,700 seconds. That would be 1 hour and 1 minute and 40 seconds. So let's, actually, I can show you right now. Oh, except I removed the print statement. So anyway, let's just, oops, forget it. Enter a number of seconds. If I say 3,700, it's obviously not going to say anything. But you know that that would have 1 hour for the 3,600 seconds, and that would leave 100 seconds left to be divided in a number of minutes and seconds. So that would have been 1 more minute and 40 more seconds. You'll just have to trust me on that, I guess. Anyway, so let's figure out how many minutes there are in the remaining seconds variable. We could say minutes equals remaining seconds divided by how many seconds there are in 1 minute, right? So that'd be 60. In fact, we could create another variable here just to keep things really easy to understand. We could say seconds in 1 minute, or seconds in minute, however you want to name that, and that would just be 60, right? It's a good idea to use constants for these things. Even if the number is pretty self-explanatory, it's even better to use a named variable or constant for this. Anyway, so we can say remaining seconds divide by seconds in minute. And let's print out what our totals are right now. So if I say hours, oops, and then minutes, let's try that again. 3,700, now it should say 1 hour and 1 minute, right? 3,700. Oops, I forgot to convert that minutes value into an integer. So we can put the int function around it with parentheses. Let's try it again. 3,700. And it says 1 hour and 1 minute. I don't have labels on it because I'm not going to use these, or I'm going to put them in a timestamp anyway, so I'm not going to use this print statement in the end. Let's see, what else do we want to do? We want to figure out the number of seconds that are left, huh? So we could create another value for the remaining seconds variable, or we can just reassign a value to it. We can say remaining seconds will now equal itself mod by seconds in minute, and that should give us the total number of seconds, right? So I could have just called this seconds, might as well. So now let's just print all 3 of them: hours, minutes, seconds. Oh, and once again I forgot to do int, although it should be a whole number anyway. Oh yeah, it's not dividing anything, so it should be fine. Okay, so 3,700 gives us 1 hour, 1 minute, and 40 seconds. We can try some of these test cases just to see if we're getting the right values on one that we know the answer. So 41,901, let's see what that does. 41,901. 11 hours, 38 minutes, 21 seconds. Good. Now, you can see this and you probably think, oh good, we're already there. If we just string those together, print it out, we're done, right? Well, not so fast. Let me show you what I mean. So let's create a string variable that uses all these values. Let's just say timestamp equals a string of hours plus the the colon character plus str string conversion of the minutes variable. So we're converting it back into a text value, right? Just like the int function was able to turn a number into a text value, in this case, into a number, and then it was able to round down to the nearest whole number in this case. Anyway, we can use the string function to convert something back into text, and that allows us to put a bunch of different text values together. seconds as well. All right, if I just print timestamp, let's see what it looks like. $41,901. Looks good. But let's try another one. 8,226. 8,226. 217.6. Does that look correct? No, it does not. We're supposed to have the leading zeros, right? So 02, 17, 06, right? Because when it's like 6:05 on a digital clock, it doesn't just say 6:5. It says 6:05. So we definitely want to have the leading zeros where it's a single digit number. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to remove these actually. Let's put them in their own variables. In fact, why don't we create different variables? This one will be called HH because it's the formatted version of the hours that looks like that pattern, right? HH, MM, SS. So those will be the other ones. MM equals STR of minutes. SS will be STR of seconds. And then we don't need to have these here. We can just say SS, MM, and HH. Now, this isn't going to change anything, right? I've just changed the order, or I guess how it's coming up with this value, but it's still going to be the same value that we just saw. See, if I do 8,226, it's still not going to have the leading zeros. Oops. So how do we add the leading zeros? Well, now that I've put them in separate functions, it'll be really easy. We can just say, once we've calculated HH, check if the hours value is a single digit number, and then reassign a value to it if that's the case. So if hours is if hours is less than 10, that means it's a single digit number. So HH in that case should actually have a 0 in front of it. And we can do the same thing here for the minutes. If minutes is less than 10, then MM should equal a 0 tacked on to the front. And same thing with seconds. So if seconds is less than 10, a single digit number of seconds, that means let's append a 0 on front of the seconds value. Let's try it again. So 8,226. There it is. Looks like we got it. So the last thing we have to do, of course, is put it in a loop. And if you just want it to go forever, you can just say while true and then indent everything. So now this is all part of a loop, and the condition is true forever, so it'll just keep repeating. It'll allow us to test multiple things. So we know that 45 was one of the tests, so it looks good. We know 41,901 was one of the tests, and the answer was 11:38:21, right? And then 8,226. Good. All right, that's it.